Security risks. Do not admit. Those words were slashed in thick, aggressive red marker across the school portraits of my 6-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter. The security guard shoved the photos against my driver's side window, blocking my path into the estate. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, refusing to lift the gate. "The bride gave us strict instructions. She said these individuals would ruin the aesthetic." I stared at the red ink defacing my children's smiles. Inside those gates, the $75,000 wedding I had personally paid for was starting. The music was playing, the champagne was pouring, and my family had labeled my children enemies. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I shifted the car into reverse. "Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community." My phone vibrated against the passenger seat, buzzing like an angry hornet. I glanced down. Dad flashed across the screen, followed immediately by a text preview. "Where are you? We're seating the guests. Don't make a scene." I didn't slide to unlock. I didn't type a furious reply, explaining that his wife's daughter had just labeled his grandchildren security risks. I didn't scream at the windshield. Instead, I tapped the contact favorites list and pressed the name directly below my father's, Mr. Henderson, venue manager. He answered on the second ring, his voice breathless, fighting against the ambient noise of a string quartet playing Pachelbel's Canon in D. "Julia! So glad you called," he said, sounding professional but harried. "We were just looking for you. The photographer needs the signatory for the final vendor checklist." "Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice calm, flat, and terrifyingly steady. "I am currently at your front gate. Your security team, acting on the bride's instructions, has refused me entry." "What?" "That must be a mistake. I'll send someone down immediately to—" "No," I interrupted. "It's not a mistake. It's a breach of contract." I looked at the dashboard clock. 2:15. The ceremony was scheduled for 2:30. According to our agreement, I am the sole client. I signed the checks. I assumed the liability. And Clause 4 of our contract states that if the client is denied access to the facility during the rental period, the event is considered null and void, effective immediately. There was a long, stunned silence on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint sound of laughter from the garden, the clinking of crystal flutes, the joy I had purchased for $75,000. "Julia," Henderson stammered, his professional veneer cracking. "The ceremony is in 15 minutes. The guests are seated." "You can't mean—" "I mean exactly that," I said. "You have two choices, Mr. Henderson. You can override the bride, fire that guard, and escort me in with an apology right now. Or you can acknowledge that the contract has been violated by your staff enforcing a ban on the paying client." I can't just stop a wedding," he pleaded. "Then you are operating an event without a valid contract or insurance coverage," I replied. "If you serve one more glass of champagne, you are doing so at your own expense, not mine. Shut it down." I heard him exhale a sharp, panicked sound. He knew the law. He knew I worked in logistics and contracts for a living. He knew I didn't make idle threats. "Understood," he whispered. I didn't hang up. I just lowered the phone and watched the rearview mirror. It took less than 90 seconds. First, the massive fountain in the center of the courtyard sputtered and died. The water pressure cut instantly. Then, the ambient landscape lighting that lined the long driveway flickered and went black. But the most satisfying moment was the silence. The string quartet cut out mid-measure. The microphone system for the officiant gave a loud pop of feedback, and then went dead. I saw the heads of the guests in the distance turn in confusion. I saw staff members in black vests moving quickly into the crowd, removing trays of appetizers and capping bottles of wine. The $75,000 fantasy was being dismantled in real time. I shifted the car into drive. My father called again. Then Sharon. Then Tyler. The groom. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. A frantic strobe light of panic. I didn't answer a single one. I pulled away from the gate, leaving the silence behind me. The highway stretched out before me, a gray ribbon cutting through the manicured vineyards of Napa Valley. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my chest felt hollowed out, scraped clean by the adrenaline. I glanced at the passenger seat. Empty. Just like it had been for 3 years since Mark died. "You have that insurance money just sitting there, Julia." My father's voice echoed in the silence of the car, pulling me back to a memory from 6 months ago. We were sitting in my modest kitchen. Brittany was scrolling through Pinterest on her phone, ignoring me, while Dad laid out the guilt like a master craftsman. "Brittany deserves a princess day," he had said, leaning forward, his eyes full of a pleading warmth he never used for me. "You know how hard she's had it. And you, well, Mark left you comfortable. It's what family does. We help each other." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Comfortable. That was what he called the death benefit from the accident that widowed me at 29. He didn't see grief money. He saw a venue deposit. I had written the check that day. Not because I was generous. Not because I loved Brittany. I wrote it because I was trained to. For 32 years, I had been the family's fixer. The one who smoothed things over. The one who paid the bills when Dad's investments failed. The one who quietly handled Sharon's credit card debt so Dad wouldn't find out. I had conditioned myself to believe that my value to them was transactional. My money was the rent I paid to occupy space in their lives. If I stopped paying, I stopped mattering. They took $75,000 of Mark's legacy, I thought, watching the mile markers blur past. And they used it to build a wall to keep his children out. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. It was almost impressive how efficient they were. They had taken the check, cashed it, and then meticulously planned how to erase me from the pictures. They wanted the aesthetic of wealth, without the baggage of the widow and her fatherless children. But they forgot one thing about the fixer. We know where the bodies are buried because we dug the graves. We know the passwords. We know the contract clauses. We hold the keys. I wasn't the weak, grieving daughter anymore. I wasn't the bank. I signaled and took the exit toward my neighborhood. The subdivision was quiet. The houses small and practical, nothing like the sprawling estate I had just shut down. I pulled into my driveway. My modest ranch house looked welcoming. A sanctuary paid for with my own salary, not a handout. I turned off the ignition. The engine ticked into silence. Inside my head, I felt a heavy, rusted door slam shut. It was the vault. I had finally canceled my subscription to their love. I stepped out of the car, the cool afternoon air hitting my face. I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter. I unlocked my front door, the sanctuary of my unpretentious life. But the noise followed me inside. My phone, still clutched in my hand, was vibrating so violently, it made my palm numb. It wasn't just ringing, it was detonating. I tossed it onto the kitchen island. It skittered across the granite, the screen lighting up the dim room. Dad. 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 Sharon. Tyler. Dad. I pressed the speakerphone button for the latest voicemail. My father's voice filled the kitchen, not worried, but commanding. The voice of a man who had never been told no by his daughter. Julia, pick up the damn phone. Henderson says you canceled the contract. Tell him it was a misunderstanding. The caterers are packing the vans. You need to fix this. Now. Do not make me come over there. Fix this. The mantra of my existence. Before I could process it, another message played. This one was from Brittany. She wasn't crying. She was screeching. The sound distorted by the microphone peaking. You jealous, miserable witch. You think because Mark died you get to ruin my happiness? You can't stand seeing me happy because you're a lonely, bitter widow. Everyone knows it. I hate you. The words hit me like a slap. She didn't attack my actions. She attacked my grief. She weaponized the worst tragedy of my life to justify her tantrum. Then, a notification pinged at the top of the screen. Brittany is live. I shouldn't have tapped it. But I did. The video feed loaded. Brittany was standing in the parking lot of the estate, the beautiful fountains lifeless behind her. Her mascara was running in artistic streaks, perfect for the camera. She was screaming into her phone, holding it selfie style. My sister hacked the venue system, she wailed to her followers. She stole the money. She's mentally unstable and she shut down my wedding because she's jealous of Tyler. She's trying to steal the refund. Please, if anyone knows a lawyer. My hands started to shake. The old panic flared in my chest, the conditioned response of the fixer. I went too far. They're going to destroy me. I have to apologize. I have to write a check. I have to smooth it over. I reached for the phone, my thumb hovering over Dad's contact. I could call Henderson back. I could pay a rush fee. I could save them. Then, I looked up. Through the archway into the living room, I saw Leo and Maya. They were building a fortress out of couch cushions, laughing as they fortified the walls against imaginary dragons. They were messy. They were loud. They were joyous. Security risks. Eyesores. Do not admit. Brittany hadn't just banned them. She had dehumanized them. She had looked at my children, the only pieces of Mark I had left, and decided they were garbage that would spoil her photos. The shaking in my hands stopped. The fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, heavy steel in my spine. I wasn't the sister who needed to be liked anymore. I was the mother who needed to protect. On the screen, Brittany was still screaming, spinning lies, demanding attention. I swiped the app closed. I turned the ringer off. I placed the phone face down on the counter. Let them scream. I was done listening. My phone lit up again. Unknown caller. I stared at it. It was probably a reporter. Or maybe one of Brittany's bridesmaids calling to scream at me from a burner phone. The siege was just beginning. I almost let it go to voicemail, but my thumb hovered over the green button. If this was the police calling about the venue contract, I needed to answer. "This is Julia," I answered, my voice sharp, ready for a fight. "Julia, this is Arthur Sterling." The name hit me like a splash of ice water. Arthur, the groom's father, the billionaire real estate mogul who had flown in from New York for the wedding. The man Dad had been desperate to impress for 6 months. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my grip on the phone tightening. "If you're calling to threaten me with a lawsuit, please direct it to my email. I have the contract." "I'm not calling to sue you," he interrupted. His voice wasn't angry. It was dangerously quiet. "I'm calling because I just watched 300 people get evicted from a vineyard, and your father is currently telling anyone who will listen that you had a psychotic break. I want the truth. Why did you shut it down?" I hesitated. This man was powerful. He could destroy me with a phone call. But I had nothing left to lose. "I shut it down because I paid $75,000 for a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend," I said. "And because your future daughter-in-law instructed the security team that my 6-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter were security risks who would ruin her aesthetic." There was a silence on the line so profound I thought the call had dropped. "What?" Arthur asked, the calm in his voice fractured. "She gave the guards photos of my children," I said, the words tasting like acid. "She wrote, 'Do not admit,' across their faces in red marker. I saw the photos. Arthur, I saw them 5 minutes before I made the call. I heard a heavy exhale, followed by the sound of a car door slamming. My son," Arthur said, his voice dropping an octave, "is currently in a limousine with that woman, trying to comfort her. He thinks you're the villain." "I know," I said. "They all do." "Not anymore," Arthur replied. "I just turned the car around." "Mr. Sterling." Listen to me carefully, Julia," he cut in. "You are at your house? Stay there. Do not open your door. I have a private security detail, my personal team, en route to your location right now. They are 12 minutes out." "Security? Why?" "Because I know people like Brittany and your father. When they get desperate, they get dangerous. And right now, they are very desperate." I felt a chill run down my spine. He was validating the fear I had been trying to suppress. "And as for my son," Arthur continued, his voice hardening into the tone of a man who moved markets for a living. "He has a choice to make. He can annul this marriage by sunset. Or he can find a new job, a new trust fund, and a new father. I don't tolerate cruelty to children. Not in my business, and not in my family." "Thank you," I whispered, my voice finally cracking. "Don't thank me," he said. "You didn't ruin a wedding, Julia. You stopped a merger with a monster. Lock your doors. My team is coming." The line went dead. I looked out the front window. The street was empty, quiet, normal, but the air in the house felt charged, heavy with the approaching storm. The private security team was 12 minutes out. 12 minutes. I paced the living room, checking the window every 30 seconds. My phone was silent now, but that worried me more than the ringing. It was the calm before the impact. Then, a text popped up. Not from family. "Mr. Henderson. Venue manager. Urgent. Brittany and your stepmother are in my office. They are demanding I process the refund immediately to a card they provided." My blood ran cold. I immediately called him back. He answered on the first ring, his voice low and shaky. Julia's event manager, Henderson, whispered in panic. Her stepmother and stepsister were claiming she stole the money, waiving a fake power of attorney, and demanding a refund to their card. Julia shut him down immediately. Refunding anyone but her would be wire fraud, a felony on $75,000. She emailed proof of payment and ID, warning she would sue him and destroy his business if he processed their card. Henderson finally pushed back, told them police were called, and the women stormed out in fury. Minutes later, they appeared at Julia's home. Her father, stepmother Sharon, and Brittany, in a filthy, torn wedding dress. They pounded on the door, demanding she fix the situation, screaming that she owed them. Through her doorbell speaker, Julia refused, listing 6 months of bills she paid for a wedding she was banned from. When they wouldn't leave, she threatened police. Brittany snapped first. Shrieking, she grabbed a landscaping rock and hurled it through Julia's living room window. Before she could throw another, Arthur's private security tackled her. Police arrived. Brittany was cuffed and arrested for vandalism and attempted assault, while her parents watched helplessly from the lawn. Arthur arrived, informing Julia his son would file for annulment and praising her composure. Her father and stepmother were escorted off the property without a word. Inside her house, Julia received the bank notification. $75,000 refunded. Her children asked if the bad noise was gone. It was. They ate cold pizza together amid broken glass. And she finally blocked all 3 family members from her phone. Julia realized what she had really bought. Her freedom. And she would never pay their price again.